Picture two people signing up for the same gym on a Monday morning. They pay the same fee, watch the same intro video, and ace their intention surveys. By every measurement of motivation, they are identical. Fast forward 6 weeks later, one of them is showing up like clockwork. The other has been twice. The difference came down to a single 12-word sentence that the consistent person wrote on day one. The other person never wrote anything down. When two people with identical desire achieve entirely different outcomes, motivation serves as a weak predictor of actual behavior. Researchers have a specific name for this: the intention-behavior gap. It is the scientifically tracked void between what people plan to do and what they actually execute. Across decades of studies, intentions explain only 18 to 23% of real behavior. You can predict just 1/5 of what someone will do based on desire. In physical activity, it's worse. Among people with strong intentions to exercise, 54 to 65% fail. By contrast, only 2 to 4% of people with no intention to exercise ended up working out anyway. Wanting it gets you into the running, but once the race starts, that desire tells us very little about who will reach the finish line. The common focus on motivation addresses a small fraction of the problem, while the majority of highly motivated people still fail to act. In 1999, psychologist Peter Gollwitzer published a paper on implementation intentions, suggesting a structural bridge for this gap. The formula is a simple logic circuit. If situation X arises, then I will do behavior Y. It pairs an environmental trigger with a predetermined response. A meta-analysis of 94 tests showed the if-then group consistently outperformed groups relying on goal intentions alone. Gollwitzer argued that forming an implementation intention effectively hands the control of behavior over to the environment. The person stops relying on their future self to make a decision in the moment. This works because an environmental cue, like a clock or a doorway, does not experience the fatigue or distraction that often derails human willpower. This is the mechanism behind habit stacking, but the strategy fails when the triggers remain vague. Cues like "after my morning routine" are too fuzzy. The trigger must be a concrete sensory event, like a kettle clicking off or a laptop closing. A 2020 study in Frontiers in Psychology followed nearly 150 adults for over 3 months to see what actually drives habit strength. The researchers found a person's discipline had no impact on how quickly a habit became automatic. The scatter plot was essentially flat. The only metric that predicted success was environmental consistency. Habit strength increased for those performing behaviors in the same context daily. Showing up regularly is the result of engineering an unambiguous trigger that fires reliably, regardless of the person's inherent discipline. The data shows one clear limitation. If-then plans are effective for starting new routines, but they are significantly less effective for quitting old ones. This is the difference between approach behaviors, where you take an action, and avoidance behaviors, where you try to resist one. Avoidance is difficult for the brain to process because deciding not to do something leaves you without a concrete action to execute in response to the trigger. To fix this, you have to convert avoidance into approach. Instead of trying to ignore a bowl of candy, the plan becomes, if I see the candy, then I will pour a glass of water and walk to the next room. Success requires giving the brain a physical, actionable destination rather than just a command to stop. This week, pick one habit and write a single sentence. If specific situation, then I will specific behavior. The trigger must be a sensory event, and the behavior must be small enough to be easily achieved. Repeat that sentence out loud 3 times. Mentally rehearsing the link strengthens the connection between the cue and the response, helping the brain transition from perception to action with less conscious effort. This research challenges the cultural narrative that self-improvement is a test of fundamental character, grit, or mindset. Lasting change is largely a matter of structural engineering. It is about setting up your environment so the version of you who is tired or bored can still function on autopilot. Once you master the triggers in your physical space, the constant need for internal motivation becomes a much smaller part of the equation. You are simply letting the environment